First of all, welcome to everyone and congratulations on taking a little bit of time to get a lot of great information you can take back to your respective organizations. My name is Matt Willis. I'll be moderating. I'm the Senior VP at a company called Advantage Club AI. We do platform engagement experience rewards, about 120 countries, 6 million users. And today we are doing nothing related to the company. We are doing everything related to the best industry experts around that are going to be talking about what they're seeing related to engagement, development, rewards, wellness, and what's working today. So I'm going to kick this off with some introductions. I'm going to start with Gretchen Mall. Gretchen has a 20-year track record of building companies, running companies, and not only as CEO, but most recently as Chief Experience Officer at a company called SalesGig. As co-founder and business executive, she grows teams and she is passionate about engagement, full cycle of employee experience. Along with Gretchen, we have Dr. Andre Martin. Dr. Martin is the author of Wrong Fit, Right Fit, best-selling book. And in addition to that, Chief Talent and Learning Officer in his background with small companies like Google, Target, Nike, and Mars. He's been an ed tech advisor, board member, org psychologist, and as a founder at Shift Space, he specifically works on culture and developing teams, small, medium, large CEOs and their teams, and is passionate about employee engagement. A third member that will be joining us that is hot off a presentation as we speak is Mr. Dan Lester, Vice President, Field Culture and Inclusion. Dan has a long history of passion for this space and works at Clayco, $6 billion construction architectural engineering firm, and frequently presents on tips related to employee experience. So great panel today. We're going to get right to it, and I'll show you a quick agenda for how we're going to best use everyone's time today. So we have 3 slides. What is the current employee experience, kind of the macro stats? Then we're going to get to kind of 3 big topics. How are we measuring and what are understanding employee needs? What's going on today? And then how do we create that energy and enthusiasm for the workforce? And then getting resources. How do we show the ROI for our executive teams related to employee experience? So with that said, we're going to move right to kind of our macro trends, the employee engagement landscape. So today we have 82%, according to Gallup, that are disengaged at work. What does that mean? The more disengagement at work, the more people are likely looking for their next job. That means we have somewhere in the neighborhood of 20%, 23% that are engaged, 51% that are actively disengaged. What is the impact? The GDP lost is 9 million a year, or 1.9 just about every 2 months. So huge impact on our individual companies. And when we have a stat that says 52% of employees are looking or actively seeking a new job, that's a problem. So what matters most? So this happened pre-COVID. COVID really accelerated this. But the first thing is, hey, I want to join a company that I can trust, that has transparency, that I feel good in. After that, then what is the most common needs? Well, number 1 is inclusion. And what does that mean? I want to be heard, flexible hours, appreciation, processes and tools to be more productive, right? A supportive workplace. Well-being talks about, hey, not only the personal, but the psychological, the mental, the family financial support. And then the career growth, learning, development, career pathing, and building a culture that I feel really good about my employer. I feel good about being heard. I feel good about my path forward. And lastly, we've got a problem today in that if we were in a room and we asked everyone as executives, hey, do you believe in engaging your employees? Are employees important to you? Every executive is going to raise their hand. 88% say yes, we actively recognize our employees, we engage them. But if you ask the frontline employees at the same organizations, you've got almost 70% of them that say they've had no recognition over the past year. So we have a disconnect in what people or processes or things that the exec teams believe they're doing and what's actually occurring. And we know now with 4 different generations working, and we have remote, we have field employees, and we have all sorts of iterations, that the Gen Z workers and millennials, almost 80% feel excluded at work. So yes, we want a remote culture, but we want that connection. So we have a real dilemma, and we're here today to talk about a couple of the tips and tricks we're seeing with different companies and what they're doing to battle this crisis. All right, so we're going to go to our panel. As we talk about our panel, last thing I want to discover is we'll get to the ROI. And what is the ROI of engaging employees? Well, it comes in many different forms that we'll talk about, but it's that productivity, it's that retention, and really it's that well-being. It's that desire to be at a place, to refer other people, and it comes out when we're dealing with our clients and growing the business. So first question, we'll start with Gretchen. We'll move to Dr. Martin. Gretchen, with your own company or companies that you're working with, what do you see people using to track employee engagement and track employee satisfaction, and how often is that occurring?
Yeah. So one of the things that we recently started doing, and this came as a result of, other companies that we've seen and some feedback from our team, is literally sending surveys. So we ask our employees, and it's right like twice a week right now, but how did it go today? Did you have a win? And we ask them for an example of a time that they went the extra mile. And that means a couple different things, culturally for us. But essentially, did you do the right thing when no one was looking? Give us an example of that. And we've learned all kinds of things about people and what's important to them because, you talk about that gap in what leadership does versus how people feel. And it's really not the intention of what people are doing, it's the impact on how it's felt. And so we're always trying to put on those glasses and see, is this good for our team? Did they receive it in the way that we meant it? And if not, how can we do better next time? Because in the end, it doesn't matter what they call it or what we call it. We want to speak that same language.
Thanks. Andre?
Yeah, I really appreciate Gretchen's answer. And, I wish this was the answer of more leaders and more companies in more moments of people's lives. Because the truth is, I don't really care how we measure it. I just think in this day and age, you can't give your employees enough opportunities to share their voice, where they are today, what they hope for tomorrow, what's really good and what's missing. Because the reality is if you don't give them that venue, they're going to go and find one.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, the last thing you want in this day and age is to be trailing the sentiment of the people who are putting really hard and really, high energy and high commitment into your company. And so it can be as simple as every time you pass up by somebody as a leader, you literally should be asking them how they are. And instead of walking by answers like fine or I'm okay, dig in and literally ask them, how could I make your day better? How can I make your experience working here better? What do you need and how can I help? And that's kind of the epitome of servant leadership. And that's the simplest way to do an engagement survey. Live and in every moment where you bump into one of your employees. And the more you do it, the more you're going to get honest feedback. You know, and I just believe that at my core. So use whatever system and platform you can use as much as you can. And literally, like, don't forget the human moments. Those are the ones that really matter to people, the ones they remember.
Follow-up question from the group. We have someone from Toronto asking, Gretchen and Andre, what are you seeing that's not working with clients that you consult with?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be glad to start, Gretchen. I think the first one I'm seeing is, you know, those long tail surveys, the ones we used to do 10 years ago, where you take the survey, you get the feedback like 3 months later. Those just aren't working anymore. You know, the cycles have sort of become so fast that you need that sort of immediate feedback. And a lot of companies are in live town halls doing live Q&A, right? Just like we're doing here. And they're actually using that to sort of both test engagement and to sort of get real questions answered in the moment. And so I think that's one thing that's really important, is the cycles have to be much quicker. You know, I think the second thing is, the biggest goal is just to do it. You know, start off anonymous, start off as safe as you possibly can, and earn the trust of your employees that when they share their voice, one is it'll be respected, and secondly, some action will be taken. And so I think the other thing is, if you're not ready to do anything with engagement survey, if you're really not interested in making change, then just don't ask the question. Right? Because you just set up this dissonance when you do, of, hey, they're asking me, but nothing's changing. And that's almost worse than not knowing at all.
I totally agree. And I think it's interesting too, what we've seen is I've been a part of a couple organizations that ask for feedback and then they don't really want to be honest with what's going on, or they're not prepared with some sort of a answer. And so then it becomes, I would argue, worse, because then you have somebody who's put a spotlight on the problem that everybody knows that you have, and nobody's really willing to address it. And so instead of going from this like quiet elephant in the room, that's what everyone's talking about at the water cooler, that's what's on the private Slack channels, and it just turns into this monster that you can't ever put back in the box.
No, that's right, Gretchen. And the reality is just this, right? That as leaders, our primary responsibility, as much as it might feel counterintuitive, is to sort of represent in the ways that we are ready and we can the changes that are being asked by the people that work for us. And again, for those leaders out there, you're not ready to do everything. And frankly, some of the things your employees want might not align with the P&L that you're trying to run, because there's just business realities. But you have to be able to step into the moment and share, hey, I heard you, I want this too, and here's the realities of the business climate that we're facing, the economics of our P&L, that mean that might take a little bit more time, but here's the one small thing I can do tomorrow. And if you sort of follow that chain, you know, you put yourself in a really, really strong place as a leader, both in being honest, in listening, and in providing, you know, the shifts and changes that you can, given the constraints you're working under.
Yeah,
Hey,
I
Dan,
think
how you
that
doing?
what you said is so important too, to just like, I acknowledge that you have this thing and we are not financially prepared to do that, or this is what it means for us as a team, but what can we do now that makes sense? Or, you know, what could we put a plan in by the end of the year or the end of the month or whatever it is that makes sense for everybody? Because again, everyone wants to feel heard and, you know, valued.
Totally, Gretchen. And one of the big examples right now is location strategy. Like, you see everybody trying to shift their location strategy, and it's economically really hard to do. And so the thing is, hey, it's not always about how many days you're in the office. What people are asking for is just flexibility. And so provide flexibility in the ways that you can, and don't apologize in the places that you can't do it, or economically it just doesn't make sense to you. But that's the thing, is provide what you are prepared to provide, both in terms of your readiness as a leader and in terms of what the company can afford.
That's great. I'm just reintroducing Dan. Dan, we gave you glowing recommendations and a great bio. We know you are hot off a presentation into another one. Perfect timing, because we are moving from how are people measuring engagement, and the consensus is don't just do it once a year and get that feedback three months later. But let's get into the weeds more consistently and do something about it. The next question for the panel is what are you doing to find and address employee needs, knowing that you've got field employees versus corporate versus remote versus cross-generation. What are you doing? What's working out there individually with your companies? So on this one, we'll go Andre, Dan, Gretchen. And what are you seeing in terms of companies trying to find employee needs in this complex world?
I mean, I think the end of that sentence, the most important one, is it's a really complex equation. You know, to make it as simple as it can be, the truth is that like opportunity is infinite for companies, right? Human energy is not. And I think the thing we have to start with is just respecting that we have finite amount of energy available to us and the people that are working for us, because they have lives, they have kids, they have friends, they have things that they want to do. And so I think the first thing is I'm seeing a lot of companies just start to respect that energy is a finite asset. And they're starting to sort of treat it in many of the things that even Gretchen sort of probably did in her work, is they're really starting to respect the experience that we create for employees.
Mhm.
You know, trying to get much clearer about what we really need done, what's most important, and trying to understand a little bit more about those economics of energy. I think the second thing that I'm seeing a lot of folks do is they're getting much clearer about their secret sauce, right? We're coming out of this era when everybody was trying to be Google or Facebook or one of these big tech companies that are providing all these bells and whistles. I think what we found is, hey, every company at its founding has a secret sauce, a really, really unique way of doing things. And every time we bring in a leader, they bring all their cultural baggage with them. And so a lot of companies are now starting to unwind all of that work we didn't do and saying, hey, let's go back and find out what really makes us special, what allows us to do great work for our customers. And let's double down on that by re-recruiting everybody back to the way we work, as opposed to trying to be something that we're just not. So I'd kind of start there with two things I'm sort of seeing and pretty excited about to see where it takes us.
That's great. Dan, in terms of what you're doing at Clayco or what you're seeing with other companies, what's working in terms of finding employee needs?
Well, you know, I will tell you that Clayco is interesting in that we don't have a HR group, or no overarching HR group. So which makes some of this a little more challenging. They're decentralized functions, but here's an opportunity for us. One of the things that we're working on right now is really talking to the field workforce, right? So, which, you know, we have the people in the offices, and by and large, if you are in one of our offices, for the most part, you are good, you feel great, you feel like you're supported and those things. However, our work is mostly done remotely on job sites, and that is a different population. That retention rate is much different. They are struggling. So we have people on our team that go out and we call them our SWAT team, right? It's the Safety and Wellness Advocacy Training Team. And so basically, they are out there working to train, and also they're bringing feedback in. They're bringing feedback in from some of the more vulnerable populations, right? The apprentice group. They're bringing feedback in from the apprentices, which only have a 66% margin of success at the highest rates of all those things happening. If you add any other classification, that's cut in half. So 66 and 36% success rates. So we're working to make sure that we're doing something to develop and the retention of those that are not connected to us, but that are connected to our job sites. We are also working with our employees, right? So how can we make sure that we are getting feedback and our team is supporting those folks to show them how much they care? That initiative has helped out. So some of the things that we look at are our safety numbers have gone down or has gotten better. Our recordable rates have gotten better. But we also have seen more usage from the services that we offer with our employee assistance program. We've seen a 200% usage internally over that. We have seen a 300% usage because we offer our EAP to our subcontracting partners as well. And we have seen over a 300% increase in those using that. Those are things that are, those are feedback mechanisms that we get. We don't know what, we can tell you what services, I don't know who is using them, but I can tell you that people are using them at a greater rate. I can tell you that our apprentices are feeling that the information that they're getting is necessary, it's relevant for them to use right now. We also train our forepersons, right? So you can't deal with the apprentices without dealing with their management, because most of us leave our jobs because of our managers, right? So if you deal with the supervisors, who many of them didn't have the proper training, so we're working to make sure they've got the proper training and make sure they are well supported so they can support better their apprentices. And like I said, we're getting getting that feedback from our teams and having constant feedback loops. And then we put out a monthly report. So when we would visit the team, our team comes out, the SWAT team comes out, then we'll visit, and then we'll send you a report of the job site health and any recommended actions that come from that. So those are some of the things that we have seen regarding feedback. Appreciate you all being open and letting me kind of jump in here a little bit late. Thank you for your ability to adapt in that capacity.
Absolutely. Gretchen, employee needs.
Yeah. So one of the things that I've seen demonstrated, across a couple different things, but we really focus on over the last like 12 months is that, a lot of people I think used to have this idea that like, oh, come join our family. Like, especially if you're working with a smaller or medium-sized business, like, oh, we're a family. Like, we're not a family. This is a community. We want you to feel valued and belong. We want to, create a space for you here. Dan, I love what you said about people using the resources more and being able to measure that. Like, that's all a part of being a useful community, but we're not a family. Like, it's not a democracy. We're not going to vote on what's happening here. Like, there's, certain business initiatives that are always going to take precedence. But what we can do to make you feel seen and heard and to feel significant in your role, we want to do.
That's great.
Hey,
Okay,
Gretchen,
sorry,
sorry, Matt, just to hook on that for a
go
second.
ahead. Sure.
One of the things that I love in what Gretchen's talking about is the sense of entitlement that you start to see in companies. Companies in many ways become a product for their employees to sort of utilize for their benefit. And I think it's a really important point. I have all the empathy in the world for employees. I mean, they are the energy that fuels our companies. And at the same time, when you join, the hierarchy of identity has to change. It has to be customer first, then company, then the team I'm on, then the team I lead, and then myself. And I think orienting people back to how a company makes money, why the world's better with us in it, and what our collective responsibility is one of the most important things you can do to drive engagement. And it shifts that sense of the company being a product to the company being a cause that I want to be a part of supporting and to do great work within. And I think if we could get that, it starts to level the playing field around what engagement is and how it's kind of serving us all.
I totally agree. And we just did a training 2 weeks ago with our team about these are what our clients do. This is how they're bettering the world. And when you get in and do that work, these are the things that are happening. And this is the direct result of what you're doing. And I think getting employees to see that bigger picture helps them, again, feel more like they belong and that they're really making an impact in a meaningful way, which we're seeing is really important with the younger generations.
Totally.
Right. As a dovetail, that's going to lead us right into, okay, so we have this survey and we're getting away from doing that. We're doing some training. We're getting more information from different channels, better, taking action. Then after we find these employee needs, then ultimately, how are we creating more energy and more enthusiasm for our teams? So on this one, we'll start with Dan, and we'll go Dan, Gretchen, Andre.
Well, I will tell you, having leadership that is passionate and invigorated about whatever you're doing is helpful. And so if you've got the support of your executive teams and I mean true support, right? We're not saying, oh, go try it out and see what it comes back. We believe in it. We buy into it. We're investing in it at a high level. And it's at the same level of many other things that we care about. We're tracking it. We're measuring it, right? You measure what you treasure, whatever gets measured gets done, those types of things, right? So those are the places where you are looking to find ways to energize. So our SWAT team is one of those groups that comes out and energizes people. You can't just be anybody on the SWAT team, right? It is a skill set. If you cannot orate publicly, then this is not the team for you. Okay, this is a team where you have to be willing to motivate and steer. But it's just more than just external motivation. I think, it was mentioned earlier, when you start to actually implement the feedback solutions that people were giving you, you'll start to see energy out there. And Andre mentioned earlier that when you are actually out there and championing these causes, right? When you're championing the causes, when people see the feed, they see you excited in it, then they are in the conversation with you, right? So when people feel like they're a part of it, it's different than you just said, we found this solution. We think it was the best solution for you. We didn't ask you, but this is the best solution for you, then it's different. But when people are participating in the process, when they are part of the solution, and they're able, part of the, then see their efforts that their feedback gave, and then they see that come to action, we see energy around that. We see energy around, certain time, you have your certain times a year where you can do it. But a lot of times that stuff is like jet fuel, burns hot and heavy, and it quickly runs out. So you don't want to live on those high notes all the time. You have to have, Andre mentioned, going back to your values and your culture, you've got to find ways to make sure that that is being permeated through every place. And if you have that type of culture, and if you have that thing, and if you're doing continuous touch points where you're encouraging those folks to get out and have those individual conversations, really your superintendents, for us on our job sites, the superintendents and the project management team, our field leaders, they have to be working the room, working the job site. And if you're on a 2 million square foot job site, walking a job site can be half of your day, right? It's a 4-hour walk, but that 4 hours is what we call the golden hour. It starts in the morning. That 4 hours, that whatever that walk is, that's when you build relationships. That's when you form those connections that when something goes wrong, you're the first to know about it, as opposed to the one that doesn't. When something is a challenge and it's a psychologically safe environment, which means they can say what they want to say or need to say, they will come and tell you what's the issue, and they know you will actually do something about it. And I'll finish with this. General Colin Powell, the late General Colin Powell, said, when your soldiers stop talking to you, it doesn't mean that there's no longer any problems. It just means that they no longer trust that you're going to do anything about it.
That's very true. Smarter than me. So I personally don't struggle with enthusiasm. That is one of the gifts that I was given. And I get to like just expound on that through life. But we are always looking for that, especially on our leadership team, as we're going to, our employees and our contractors and the people that work with us. Like, how can you be you, but like at a 12? I'm not saying don't be you. I'm not saying, don't stand in the garden and look around and go, there's no weeds, there's no weeds. If there's weeds, like, let's be honest about it. Everybody's got problems, but like, let's acknowledge it. And, we always want to, in the decision-making process, whether it's at the leadership level or, on down through the organization, we're referring back to our values when we're having those decision type conversations. I want everyone to be heard. That's like one of our mission goals. We want everyone to be heard. We're not going to vote on it again, this, what's happening, but refer back to our company values. And are these values being carried out in this potential problem or the opportunity to solve it? And that way everyone has a chance to feel valued as we move into a solution for those things. And it's really made a difference for us, because sometimes, on the leadership level, we're hearing what they're saying, but we're not as close to the problem as them. They're seeing it, live and in person every day. And so there's a lot of value in the way they bring the solutions and how they think it should be solved. And we try to acknowledge that through our energy and our values.
I mean, fantastic answers. I'd probably sort of share, follow on with just, real micro example of like, what do you do when you're in front of another person every day? And I think there's 3 things that like employees really want from us right now. One is they need inspiration. The science of inspiration will tell you that if you can share an inspiration dose with somebody, it's a transfer of energy, right? And they can't help but put that towards new, better, different, or more meaningful solutions. And so bring more inspiration into the workplace, however you do that. It doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be big speakers of well-written books. I mean, it can be, I saw this thing, and here's what I found really interesting and excited about it. It could be customer stories. I think the second one is they look for opportunity. The thing that I think is driving a lot of what's happening in engagement is when people take a job, we make them this super narrowed version of themselves. Right? They become this one thing they do every day, and they have a raft of skills, right? And our inability to see all the things that they could contribute is sort of making them feel like I'm only like this much of myself in your company. And so they're taking all their creative juice elsewhere. That's why side hustles are a thing, is because they don't have anywhere to put that creative juice. So they're going to go put it somewhere else. And in your companies right now, you have people who are project managers that used to write for newspapers or were graphic designers or did all these amazing things. It's time to start bringing that stuff in and you'll get more commitment. And I think the last one is just, really this sense of you got to build great team leaders. I mean, in truth, it's the relationship that I have with the person that's right in front of me that drives about 25% of my life satisfaction, right? And our leaders just aren't prepared enough. And frankly, as much as I've been doing this for 25 years, we haven't got them ready enough. This is a really complex time. It's a hard time to be a manager. And I think we got to build them up so they can sort of be what our people need them to be, which is someone that can, God, make life the greatest classroom on earth and allow me to learn and grow every day I'm coming to work. And that's, we just know that's not happening right now.
We have a quick follow-up. Those were all three great answers. Quick follow-up that talks about the energy and adding to our energy. I think this might be to Andre, but all three. Do you advocate for employee resource groups or other connection groups within the organization? Does that work or is working for your companies?
I mean, I'll start. Like, I believe, community matters, to Gretchen's point, right? And so the more ways you can give people a community that they have an affinity with, the more connected I'm gonna be the place that I work. I mean, it's kind of simple math, right? It's what every small town was built on, is I'm just gonna bump into people that I know, that see the world the way I see it, that care about the things I care about. And that's gonna make me feel like I'm at a place I should stay at. It's why, back in the day, people lived in the same town for 50 years, is because there's something really great about turning a corner, and knowing you're gonna run into someone that sees you, knows you, and cares about you. I think with that, the other thing about energy that's been on my mind is we've made well-being this individual pursuit, right? It's up to me to make sure that I have well-being in your company. And the fact is, energy is sort of dependent on the way that we create our companies. The touch points that we give people, are they naturally energy restoring? Are they just zapping people's energy? Like, performance management is one of the greatest things in the world. Like, I don't know anybody that walks out of that process satisfied or having their energy restored. And yet we still do it. And we spend hundreds of thousands of hours on it. Like, we got to do some serious redesign of the way we think about the ways our people interact with the stuff that we create. And a lot of it's just antiquated. And it needs a refresh, especially in this day and age that we're living in.
Dan, Gretchen,
I'll
any
talk
on
about our resource groups.
ERG groups? Yeah.
Yeah, we have business resource groups, right? So we don't have one for everything under the sun or every group of people that wants to get together. Clayco believes that, those folks will in turn naturally find themselves. The fathers will find each other, the mothers will find the parents, whomever, the skydivers, etc. But we do have other groups, though, that are a business resource, right? That is a data-based solution or something that they are bringing that is valuable to the enterprise. It is also a place for, like Andre mentioned, a shared community. And some of the populations that we are serving in our ERG or BRGs are groups that are largely marginalized in other parts of their life, right? So there is a resource for the business as to why we're engaging with this group, but there is also a need for the business internally for those employees. Sorry about that. There's something that might not, there's something for the employees that they get a chance to have that community and say, listen, these are the challenges I'm experiencing. And a lot of them are struggling, right? So if you've got, I will just be honest and be transparent. If you've got a guy who looks like me in the middle of Nebraska somewhere, he does not have a lot of folks that look like him on that team, right? Typically, and it's not a lot of people in the community where they are in general. So then, it doesn't matter what's real. It just matters what's perceived. Perception is reality, whether it is the truth or not. If my pain is hurting, it doesn't matter if I only have a hangnail and I'm in pain. It's the hangnail and pain will fill the void. If I am alone in a process, it will fill the void. And that is what leads us to the greater challenges that I just finished talking about, which were some of the physical environmental causes for root causes for mental health. And so in our industry, we struggle with that. So when we start dealing with people and dealing with what they need and how do we do that, it's a great way to connect. But what we're seeing is that it's saving folks not only their jobs, but especially like in our mental health group, it's saving folks' lives, right? People are really talking about things that we're not supposed to talk about at work. But yet, when we talk about them at work, because we're human, like Andre, we're not robots, right? We live, we have life, life goes on when I leave this job. And Gretchen mentioned, we are not in a family. I can't get rid of my family. I can get rid of this job though tomorrow. Okay, I can have a new job and I'll go somewhere else. And so if that's the reality, then we have to serve people as if they have somewhere else they can go. But more importantly, if we're really serving people, I think, I'm talking at a high level now because we have much work to do here as well. But if we're really serving people, how much better can we serve, or what environment are we working you into that is helping you to be better in your environment, whether it's energy or whether it's productivity or whether it's whatever it is. We just know that our people are doing the hard work and they don't have enough energy. They don't have enough hours. It's not enough time, whether you're in the trades or whether you're on the project management operations team or in the office. Everybody's overworked. So then what do you do to make it better? You got to find ways and to get to the people. And it has to be now. It has to be now. It has to be yesterday. It doesn't matter. The last slide I did today, it says inclusion is not about current events. It is about making sure everybody has what they need to thrive and survive in the environment, period. That's what it is. Do you have what you need to be successful here? If you don't, then we have a responsibility within a reasonable accommodation to provide that. If you do, great, energy will continue. And those resource groups are one of those things that we can provide at a very low entrance of barrier that gives people some support.
I love that you guys are doing that. I think that's so tremendous. And we found these like I want to call them micro groups of people, like the people who all love to read, like get together and have a book club. We've seen people who all have hidden talents. Like we had a hidden talent Slack channel, but all kinds of people, musicians and poets and just some crazy stuff, but they all got together and it was an outlet for them to share their creativity. If you look at the science of happiness, right, they really measure the quality of your life is the quality of the relationships that you have. And so, if we're looking at our companies as communities, what can we do to make somebody just have that one more step where they feel like they belong, or like what they do is meaningful and impactful here. For what Dan said, like you don't quit a bad job, you quit a bad manager. I think it was Dan. Somebody said that was very real.
Just to put a cherry on it, I mean, both those points are great. Dan, what you're talking about rings true. I remember Dean Carter at Patagonia used to say, you only need to ask one question to measure engagement. And it's really this idea of, did we put more into your life than we took out of it as a company? And I'm like, that is just like so powerful and so simple.
Wow.
I love that one.
There's some good quotes here. We're taking a best of this panel. we're gonna publish. Okay, good transition here. We're at about 12:40, so ideally we have about 5 to 10, and then we're gonna go around the horn with each of the panelists, giving their kind of 2-minute drill for all the audience. So last big question for the panel. You're preaching to the choir. How do you get executive buy-in for the resources related to these engagement, experience, wellness, connection projects? So on this one, we're going to start with Gretchen, Andre, then Dan.
Yeah. The easiest way I have found is always dollars and cents. And if you can justify like financially how it's going to work out, that's great. One of the things that we are finding is that mental health is a bigger issue. It is a huge polarizing issue. It is very important. And some of these impact things that you can do with engagement can lead back to that. So I would encourage, you've had some success going to health insurance companies, whoever's doing those providers for you guys. They have some really great resources. Sometimes it's programs they have, sometimes it's financial assistance to implement those. That can be a huge deal. And the other thing is, and we all know this, again, preaching to the choir, but like happy, engaged employees produce more, they stay longer. Like there's just all of these metrics behind it. And so, how can you build that together and put a pretty bow on it? It's not as easy as, those little bullet points I just said, but if you can do it, that's the perfect world.
Right, we'll go to Andre. ROI for the exec teams on these initiatives.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing this work for 20 years and it's really hard, right? Because the truth is that engagement, for each individual is a very different formula. And so where I always start is with the executive team themselves, and if we can get them to understand that a large part of why they've been at the company they've been at, a large part of what kept them coming in working long hours is this deep commitment and engagement. And all we want is for every member of this team to feel that same way. So we have a shot at, keeping people for 20 years. Because the truth is, the longer an individual stays at a company, man, that knowledge compounds just like interest. And so part of it is you have to speak their language. Secondly, is you have to make it personal. I think the third piece is you have to provide data. And last but not least is get them to measure engagement. Again, I don't care how you do it, but the minute you start to see that sentiment isn't sort of where you would like it to be, you're closing that intention versus impact gap in a very real way. And, an engagement survey is simply just a 360 for a CEO. And like, if you can get that measurement done, it's hard to walk away with it once you've seen the gap, at least in my experience. But getting people to measure it is a really hard thing to do.
Yeah.
I would, that's a great place to stop, right, Andre, where, looking in the mirror, right, is one of the hardest things for especially executives to do. And so that can be a challenge to get folks to do those surveys, because it then shows you where you have some, what we would call opportunities for growth, but they look at them as, kind of little kinks in their armor of their leadership armor, so to speak. So I think there is a something to be said for the data that comes around, right? So one of the things that we did to get our mental health programming, and even this culture, this what we call our CEI, our Culture, Equity, and Inclusion program, which we started several years ago. How do we get that going? Is through the data points, right? There's all kinds of data, even in a company that doesn't necessarily, or that company that may not want to measure data. There's all kinds of data that you can be pulling from that can give you that, your retention data, your attrition data, right? Those are data points where if they don't want to measure, you don't got to go nowhere. Your department, somebody has that. Okay, somebody knows how many people are losing, how you're losing, and what's the rate, the percentage rate of people that you're losing per the average, all that good stuff. That's an area to do at. You can, if you don't have employee satisfaction, you're doing performance reviews. If your performance reviews are worth anything in salt, then there's somebody should be telling them about their management right now. Whether management takes it to heart or not, there at least is an opportunity there. And so, but the data points where you can find a way, and like Gretchen mentioned, to turn it to those dollars, right? So when you, or Andre too, like the gap, there's a gap between, hey, this is what you say you want to be, this is what's really happening, and this is where and this is what you're doing, and this is what's really happening with all those things. When they see that gap, and when they see there's a viable solution, I think one of the other things that is always challenging for leaders sometimes in the day-to-day business is if you're presenting problems without presenting solutions. Now, I know there could be some thoughts about how that is, but a lot of leaders would at least have liked you to have a half-baked solution to the problem that you're seeing. So again, if you're empowered in those capacities, but those are ways that we found to get leadership going. Data is a place. And if you can tie that data to your competitors, by the way, competitors, my leaders are extremely motivated by what our competitors are doing, right? And so, they've been competing with each other. We started off in 1984. So most of our people that we're competing against, they've been around their entire life. They know these folks, so they know they are extremely motivated by what our competitors are doing, and we want to be best in class. And so if our competitors are doing that, that is a data point that when they see our competitors' news articles about this, when they see our competitors in the news and in the national news cycles, my goodness, they're working on that to make sure we are in those national cycles and that we are doing those things. So those are pieces where the data is the key, and linking that data, and whether it's data that you have to go collect through through some engagement survey, or if there's data that you're already pulling from all the myriad sources, your safety ratings, all the other places that you can use as transferable data that proves metrics to how we're doing, can be very beneficial.
That's great. So we're down to our 2-minute drill. I do want to just summarize. We work with about 1,200 companies, and any engagement we do. We provide automated anniversaries, birthdays, but it's more than that. It's the automated certificates for learning. It's the automated service, safety, attendance, time, and then the connections and the surveys, but making it very simple. Every single one of our customers, we ask what metrics is important, because without that, we know that the HR team's engaged, but the exec team is not going to find value. We typically see retention, competitors, and we see engagement. You know, what are you measuring? And we try to see that. So I think those 3 data points are, from a global perspective, we see resonating at the CEO's budgeting process. With that, time has flown. We have a lot of questions that have come up that we probably won't be able to specifically answer. Don't worry. After this panel, we are going to provide a summary, and we do have 1 or 2 of our engagement leaders, meaning our 20-year vets, to discuss what we're seeing in our particular industry or size of company or recommendations. So you can feel free to set a meeting. We're also going to provide the panelists LinkedIn information so you can reach out to them. So with that, you will have a follow-up, and I want to just go around the horn. We're going to go back to Dan first this time, then to Gretchen, then to Andre. 2-minute drill. Any parting thoughts on this very important subject of engagement and recognition? So Dan, we'll go back to you for your parting thoughts for us all.
Yes. Well, what we know is, I deal with a lot of the field culture. So my focus is really heavily focused on our field culture, our field leadership, and our trades, men, women, and those folks on our sites. And so when you're dealing with those groups, it is authenticity is relevant. But knowing who they are, knowing the challenges that they're struggling with, knowing that they're not by themselves, and that you actually really do care about them it goes a huge way. And because we deal with those populations, it's big for us to make sure that, because those populations also, especially the trades, do not want to be recognized in front of other people is a challenge, right? So sometimes the calling out in front of other people makes them a target for folks in their trade or other people, and like, why did you? But if you're doing consistent engagement, if you are doing consistent inclusive engagement to where, everybody's winning an award every month or this week or whatever, or like you talked about the birthdays, and everybody's getting constant pings about things that are relevant to them and that they're valuable, it is huge. At the end of the day, it is people that will make you profit. It is people that will make you successful. It is people that will make you productive. It is people that build good culture. And so all the things that we are talking about have to do with people. People are the number one thing. And if you are not working to do better with your people, then you are working in the wrong way. If you are not doing better to serve your people better, the better you serve them, the better they can serve their clients and your partners and everybody else and themselves. So the more that we can work on ourselves as companies, working to better serve our populations and those that we serve better, then you're going to see a greater return on that investment in the community of the investments, right? Andre mentioned that those things, they double when you give them away, right? As you give them away, that information, that inspiration now is inspiring somebody else, and they can inspire somebody else. And then that becomes a snowball. So deal with your people, measure what you treasure, and make sure you are having a solution for what they need.
That's great. Gretchen.
I love that. I forever, as long as I can remember, personally have just been really excited and motivated and learning about why people do what they do. And everybody's motivated by something a little different, right? Like, some people are here to have a good time. Some people are here to be the achiever. Some people, and there's just like a whole litany of things that you can identify. But we use different kind of personality tests and stuff to identify what those things are in our people. But we challenge our leadership team to find somebody doing something good and relate it back to that thing that motivates those people. And it fosters this sense of community for us, which again is a huge deal because we all work remotely. So we have to create these ways for the water cooler conversations, I would say, right? Like you have to engineer ways to have these conversations about how do we innovate, what's working, what's not working, because it's not just happening in the lunchroom when everybody's off. And so you have to be able to, I don't even know another way to say it. Just like engineer a way for people to come together to do that. And when you do that and you relate it back to how people, feel fulfilled and feel valued in their life, which is hard to do at scale. So you've got to have, your team implementing with their team and so on. But it's really impactful and meaningful, and that's how you get people engaged. That's how people keep coming back. That's how when you start posting that you have jobs, they're like, oh, I got a friend who wants to come, or so and so is here, and it really kind of can just build. It's a really profound and awesome thing to watch in person.
Great, Andre.
Yeah, I take it from maybe both perspectives. I think employees out there, I feel like you have to have more intention around wanting to be engaged, right? No company is perfect. And either is any human in the world. And so just this idea of you got to walk in wanting to be engaged. You got to walk in being a little bit fascinated about the place that you work. You have to walk in able to give grace that we're all just trying, right? We're just trying to make sense of the world right now. And so I see a lot of employees who just walk in ready to be dissatisfied. And frankly, it's the easiest thing to do in the world. And so employees just try to walk in being willing to be engaged, walk in with grace, walk in with possibility. I think for leaders out there, engagement's a ground game. It's a day-to-day pursuit. Everybody has their head up, looking at greener grass, finding a better place to work. And so your job in engagement is like, you got to answer 5 questions. You got to tell people why the world's better with us in it. You got to remind them how we make money and where they fit into that equation. You've got to tell them like the next mountain we're going to try to tackle, not the big audacious vision. Those days are gone. It's like, what are we going to do next week? What mountain are we going to climb the week after? And I think the last 2 questions are, you got to remind them how we work. You have a special sauce. Don't lose it as you grow. And finally, what's the promise you're making to them? What can you promise and what can't you promise? If I can't promise you get to work remotely, what can I promise to make your life a little bit better? I think it's kind of that simple. And so, that'd be my hope for leaders, is just try to answer those questions every time you bump into somebody at the company. And if you do it, you got a fighting chance.
Wow. Terrific ending. Great points from all of our panelists. I would just want to thank our panelists on behalf of everybody attending and from us for giving your time for this very important topic. A reminder to everyone that did attend, and for those requesting recordings, that those are available. We will be following up with you. And again, everyone, much thanks for what you have said today, and let's go put it back into our respective organizations today. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.